it comes back to really competitor research is going to be first and foremost. I like to show them exactly what the competitors are doing right now because they're the ones they're competing with realistically. There's merit, I also believe, into not only looking at those businesses at the top of the page, but look at page like, 3 and 4, right outside of that front range. And it's like, A, they're either growing, or B, they're doing something that it's just not working.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Exact Digital Podcast, where we spotlight marketers who aren't afraid to get in the weeds, experiment, and drive measurable results. Today, I'm joined with Kyle Wendling, founder of Gracely Marketing, a boutique agency rooted in Charleston, South Carolina, with a sharp focus on local SEO, Google LSAs, and hyper-targeted strategies for home service businesses. Kyle blends years of UX operation experience with deep SEO knowledge, bringing a hands-on, thoughtful approach to client campaigns. In this episode, we'll dive into how SEO and paid ads is the ultimate one-two punch for home services, the power of hyper-local content in a noisy digital space, AI's role in scaling lean marketing teams, and why strategy, not just traffic, should be the goal. Hey, Kyle, and welcome to the show.
What is up, Kenzie? Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Hello. Yes, the first time we met, we got to meet in person, which is not something that I often get to do for my pre-podcast meeting. So that was a blessing.
Yes. Yeah. I have not been back to the donut spot yet, but I need to go because it was good. It was good.
Yeah, you said it was your wife and kids' favorite place, and wow.
Yeah, they go there frequently, and it's normally while I'm working. They're out and exploring the town, but I've gotten leftovers. I've just never had it from there. But yeah.
Wow, it's funny how the stars align sometimes. So you told me that Gracely is named after your two daughters, a combination of their middle names, and that's such a great story. But can you tell me a bit more of what made you go all in on local SEO and home services?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the name, nothing too crazy behind the scenes. It was just my oldest daughter's middle name is Grace. My youngest is Lee, so I just added those together. Took way too long thinking of a name. That was one tip that typically I don't recommend, anyways. But we started essentially with, it's probably like a lot of people. It was during the pandemic. I wanted to really focus in on the entrepreneurship route, and really really the past probably 15 years, I've had UX experience in running operations for larger companies. And, I had noticed in our local town, so we're based in Somerville is where I live, and we serve the Charleston area, but you saw, naturally all these businesses going down. It wasn't because of bad service or anything. It was because they couldn't be found. And, there was a lot of tough times going on, and it really there was a light bulb that went off. And, being able to support, especially like the niches that we, go towards as home services, it's cool. It's the businesses that build up our community. We get to support them back. And it was a really apparent gap within local SEO too that I saw in that world. So, as the stars aligned with that, that was really the direction Gracely Marketing turned into.
Amazing. I love that. I love when people tell me the story of taking what they already knew or their experiences and turning it into something that has become a huge fruition, and having the authentic passion behind it of wanting to help the community that helps you and supports you.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've supported businesses across HVAC, roofing, dental, and pressure washing. Where have you seen the strongest ROI for clients, and why?
Yeah, so I would definitely, out of those, roofing, HVAC, general contractors, thinking like kitchen and bath, that's going to be the biggest ROI that I've seen. And really, I mean, it's a numbers game at that point. If you're looking at, what leads mean coming into these businesses, what it means to be in the Google Map pack and ranking up top there, having a lot of trusted reviews and kind of building that trust behind you. One job or one organic lead is a $15,000 job for a roofer, or more or less. It's one of those things to where these are big ticket items that really can make an impact for these business owners and what they do. So I think that's a really special thing about SEO is we come from a world to where there's traditional advertising, there's paid ads and everything, and SEO sometimes will appear as a black box and what it truly does. And I think there's definitely elements that everyone could do and they could research. It's just a matter of there's time behind it. That these business owners come in, but you see the ROI that comes back behind them. And roofing, HVAC, general contractors, between the three of them, it's definitely a hire for when you think about SEO services monthly and what they're actually getting based on those leads. It's definitely impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, you think about, oh, these people are investing so much, and in reality it's like maybe they're paying the amount for one service that they would give, but then they're getting like 5 clients from it.
Right. And, I think we may have chatted about this too when we first met. It was a lot of it too. You think of SEO and you think about ROI. SEO, I've always said it's one element of the mix, and I'm huge on UX. So, when you think through our strategy and how we place this behind a lot of businesses, unfortunately, in my niche area, they've got a lot of dated websites. So it's not really the matter of traffic; it's the matter of conversion and revenue at the end of the day for the business owners. So it's finding that blend of the strategy to say, okay, if we're going to bring traffic to your website, that's great. But once they get to the website, what's their impression going to be? Can they easily convert? Do they call you? Do they fill out a form? That's the biggest opportunity right now that gets overseen a lot. So that's definitely something we focus on in the strategy side of Gracely.
Right. Because you can do a lot with driving traffic, but it's like, what are you doing with that traffic afterwards? And how is it becoming an actual lead rather than just somebody that's there?
Right. And the other element of this that we really focus on is the hyper local targeting aspect of it. And I use, thinking off the top of my head, I'll use roofing as an example. A lot of businesses they want to rank for these words around roofing, but if you're ranking for roofing repair guide for 2025, you may be based in Charleston, South Carolina. The viewer that's seeing that could be in California, and you could get a ton of traffic for it. It's not going to convert over to revenue for your business. And if you switch the mindset of that to where it's like roof repair in Charleston, that's going to start bringing that local traffic, and that's really a lot of the method behind the madness. It's really not a rocket science. It's just making sure that our content is aimed towards the local market that has the intent to buy or has that intent, whether it's bottom or top of the funnel.
Right. And also, if you have those overarching things that don't mention the localness of it, it can be drowned out by all the other people and their noise and trying to promote themselves, where it's like, okay, well, you have a niche, which is your location, that could really stand you above in front of all of the other.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm. So I know you mentioned this a little bit, but your background in UX and operations really comes through in how you work with your clients. What have you brought from the corporate world into Gracely's day to day?
Strategy. That's the biggest thing. I would say overall, that's probably, when we always get the standard, what's your unique selling, what's the USP? And it's really the gap that really started Gracely. I talked about it and, identifying those local businesses that weren't getting the support. But the other component of that I didn't touch on is it's very rare to see an SMB or just a small business be treated as an enterprise client and really understand A, B, and C, how we're getting there, and how we get to Z from this with the strategy. And that's where a lot of people have been burned. I'm sure you've heard it on your side in the agency world that you hear all these horror stories, and it's laying out and it's treating the small business customers as enterprise clients, and really letting them understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. That's really helped our retention rate. It's been a different mindset to bring into that world. And in the UX operations side, the other piece of my background is operational focus. So I understand from a business owner's perspective, what is vanity, what is the fluff metrics and everything, and what truly is going to drive the business. And I think bringing that element into focus other than, more traffic, more clicks, it's making sure that we're building the relationship with the owner, turning into a partner, and then getting revenue out of it.
Amazing. And you mentioned your retention rate and it was 100% so far. So what
Yeah.
has been a key to keeping those relationships so strong?
Yeah, so I will caveat we've actually we're relatively new, so a year and a half, but it's still it's something impressive that I like to quote unquote brag about. But I mean really the difference is it's the relationship building and it's making sure that all of my clients, the business owners behind it, they know again what we're doing, why we're doing it, and I really like in the upfront conversations. It's more of there's some business owners they want to be heavily involved, they want to know day to day what's going on here. There's some that they're like just send me a monthly report at the end of the day, I just want to know, I'll know when we're getting more calls from clients. And it's really understanding what we're doing to get to each of those points. So if they have that, it's a lot easier to say, okay, this is step two of this is step three, this is all part of the process. And with SEO, a lot of things take time. I've been fortunate enough to where I think with local SEO, it's definitely not an underdog or a lot of people are doing it right now, but I do feel like the hyper local targeting has really helped us to. For example, I mean, the latest we have a pressure washing company that we've been working with. Really, it's been about a month, maybe 5 weeks. Just started with some on page stuff. Essentially pretty basic, and a lot of it was gaps within the Google business profile, being able to kind of see what the competitors were doing, deep competitor research, and then being able to explain, okay, here's the other businesses, this is what they're doing, we need to get to here in order to compete. And it's really showing them the actual roadmap and the plan behind everything. And we've seen with that pressure washing company, they've already ranked for 7 keywords in the first 5 weeks, which it was sooner than I even thought. And I was candid with the owner. And it's just, I think, continuing to be that business partner instead of a vendor or a contractor for them, and kind of switching that mindset up has been the difference between us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we work with a lot of agencies as we discuss and we have a similar relationship like that because we want to be working with you alongside you so that it's not just kind of like we're being an order taker and we're just, hearing what you want to say and be like, okay, yeah, sure. It's kind of like, okay, how are we going to get there? Let's think about this. What's the strategy? And like really looking into it, as well as when we're working client direct. It's very, okay, why do you want to do this? Obviously, you want to make money. Everybody wants to make money, but why? Where are we going? Who are we looking towards? What is your branding? And I know that yours
Yeah,
on the SEO side, so words really matter and language really matters and how you're presenting yourself is really important. So making sure that you know this person truly and what is their message and what are they trying to solve.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things too, to where even down to, I think this is another differentiator is I know we may touch on AI at one point, but when you think through all the different tools out there, there's several different ways. I mean, it shapes different tones for businesses, and like you see all these different things with copy and the way we write, and that's an important part because if you're way off the mark from what the business owner expects or wants, or that's that personality they want, it's not going to be a good relationship. It's not going to work well, and it's understanding all that up front. So again, it's just it goes back to really, first of all, what are the business goals? Where are we going towards? And how do we execute on that from here? And this is the plan to get there.
Absolutely. And now, since you brought it up, I'll just bring it up. So, you're not shy about using AI tools like ScaleNut, Surfer, and SpyFu. What role do you think AI should play in marketing today, and what should always stay human?
Yeah, so I know this is a controversial topic to some. I embrace AI 100%. I think there's absolutely a space for it, and it's one of those things. To not get left behind, you have to kind of evolve with it. I think of it as a power tool, as opposed to manual labor. It's one of those things to where the the speed and the rate that you can scale things with AI. I use it a lot for research, and a lot of that is very manual work. And I know we talked about this when we first met. It was SpyFu, ScaleNut. There's a lot of use cases out there for some of these tools that I mean they're incredible for what they do, and it's honestly it saves so much time back to the agency of doing that upfront work, but really where we draw the line when it comes down to like content and copy, I think AI is good for it's good for setting up a foundation. It's good for an audit. It's good for getting ideas. If you have a writer's block, it's good to start with that, but you always have to have human intervention. I think that as time goes on, who knows? It may get there, and you can't tell the difference. I personally feel that you can, and I think Google does too at this point. And it's like we do a lot of side testing too. I have testing websites on the side, and I'll say, okay, let's try AI content on this one. Let's try pure human content on this, and see what the difference in the data says with rankings. And there's not substantial enough to say don't use it or do use it, but I look at it again as an accelerant, as a power tool to really speed things up for us, and go with the flow because it's going to be here for a while, and we're all going to be using it eventually, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think keeping that middle ground and making sure that you're using the tools that are efficient and help you succeed um, in timely manners, but making sure you're still having that human element because it's still obvious sometimes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
writer's block is a great point. There's times where you're like, oh gosh, like I'm just thinking about way too many things, my personal life, whatever's going on. And then you can just be like, hey, can you give me like 5 little topics? And I'm like,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
exactly. And then you could just go on from there and it saves like so much time. And then you can go pay more attention to some of your clients.
yeah, and I'll even here's another use case. This is what I do sometimes with some of the clients. Depending on what the outreach is, if it's inbound, outbound, on how we're targeting. A lot of times I will literally I'll go into SpyFu, and as I'm reaching out to make sure that they know, we already have some value ahead of time, I'll say, here's what your top 3 competitors are doing. This is what's going on in the local search. And that's the AI doing that. I mean, it's a quick click there. You get to understand kind of what's the lay of the land. It's almost like X-ray vision, I guess, in a sense there. And then you take that and you create your strategy around it. But being able to show, what is truly working, what is Google rewarding in the SEO world, or whether it's, at the number one spot or if it's in the map pack, something is working for a reason. So that's able to kind of guide and tell us what that is, and then we can hone in on it instead of spending weeks, maybe, in back in the day, it's trying to figure out the competitors and what they're all doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like going to testing key search terms and things like that, not having to actually manually put it in and go through it. Like you can just upload the key search terms that you've been, processing through and it can give you the results immediately. And it just saves so much time because when you're a marketer, you are juggling multiple different hats. You have your client base, you have prospective clients, you have campaigns that are running. And then there's those things that are just so time consuming. And you could have an assistant do it, but then you're like, oh no, I want my eyes on it. I'm
Yeah.
really controlling. So it really just shortens up things that could take 3-4 hours, and it could take like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I fall in that realm too. So with Gracely, I mean, it started just as me. We're a lean team. I focus on the strategy side. So we have strategists and we have a content team. But other than that, I mean, as far as the account management, it's me primarily working with each client, and that part, it gets important to me to where I want to have eyes on it. I want to know what's going on to make sure we're hitting those goals. And I think as we evolve and as we grow. Things like that will change, and naturally, I mean, it's with other roles in my lifetime that you have to adapt with, and you just kind of go with that. But I know what you mean. It's like it's hard to let go of the control, especially with AI. Like I want to be able to go in, and I want to, whether it's writing content or updating it. I don't want it to be straight out of the engine, basically.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. So you said that SEO and Google Ads are like the deadly combo for home services. Can you walk us through what a winning hybrid strategy looks like?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I look at SEO. SEO is the foundation for your traffic. It's not a hidden secret. SEO can take time. Google has to react. You have to build backlinks. You have to build trust in the algorithm. Um, so it's going to take time naturally. And I think if you lay out those expectations with the client, that's one thing. And if they're okay with that, great. But there's also the combo method that we propose a lot of times is use paid ads as an accelerant as we're building that foundation. And specifically for the service businesses is the LSA ads or Google search ads, some retargeting we do depending on who the client is and how much traffic they've gotten to the website or social media, what have you. But really it's those two. And I look at it from a perspective of, again, foundational work, and then here's the accelerant to the fire while that's going. But beyond that, it's the call ads in the way when I think through trust, and I explain this to business owners a lot too, is yes, we want to be the one that ranks first. You want to be the top seen, but the way Google's structured, and it's adapting and changing every month, there's changes to it to where you may see 3 sponsored ads and you've got the map pack, then you've got the actual search results. If you're showing up at the top, you're showing up in the middle and at the bottom, naturally customers start gravitating to that and saying, okay, this is probably a trusted business in the area. So I always joke with them. I'm like, hopefully they click the SEO link, so you're not paying for the actual pay per click. But it's another factor in there that we just use as we're building up that SEO foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. On one of my colleagues, she has this really great example for the difference between SEO and SEM and how they can work together. SEM being the paid portion. She says that SEO is like going to the gym, doing the reps, eating good to lose weight.
I like that.
And then paid search is when you're taking the Ozempic shot and you're just going to lose the weight altogether. But the thing is it's hard for one to work without the other. If you're taking the Ozempic shot, then you're going to need to keep things up, or you're going to still have to be paying $100 every time for that Ozempic shot.
Right.
And then on the other hand, sometimes people need that quick fix. They need those low-hanging fruit. They need those leads automatically, and they don't have time for the SEO. So because SEO is something that, takes a lot of detail and a lot of nurturing in order to be done properly.
Yeah. I love that analogy. I need to steal that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure she doesn't mind because I just stole it. Yeah. So what's your approach on helping clients understand why you're doing what you're doing, especially if they've been burned before?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it comes back to really competitor research is going to be first and foremost. I like to show them exactly what the competitors are doing right now because they're the ones they're competing with realistically. There's merit, I also believe, into not only looking at those businesses at the top of the page, but look at page 3 and 4, right outside of that front range, and it's like, A, they're either growing, or B, they're doing something that it's just not working. And so looking at both sides of that, being able to show the clients where their website would be, or where their SEO status or progress, their authority score, what have you, where that's at, that's the biggest thing up front that we go with in order how to execute the plan or strategy. And it all starts with basing it off those competitors. Obviously, the goals of the owner come to mind. That's going to be next in line, but to get us to the first piece of this, we have to understand what the competitors are doing, and then we can capitalize on that from what the owner's goals are and how we really execute that plan.
I'm going to quote the same woman. She says, if you ever want to bury a dead body, hide them in the third page of the Google searches.
Excellent. Excellent. I need to meet this person.
I know, she's great. She was on the market trip with me when I met you, but she just got in with her flight. So
okay,
almost there. Maybe
I just need a dictionary of all these analogies.
Yeah, right. But that's actually a really great way to look at it. You want to go look at that third page so you can see, okay, what are these competitors doing? Maybe I can learn from it that I shouldn't do that because we want to grow ourselves. But obviously it takes time and you're not going to do it automatically. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll pick on Gracely Marketing. Actually, when I first built that website, this was all testing and it was all trying to figure out. I was going through all these different SEO courses and all these different qualifications and things just to really get the foundation. And so I was testing, and it was for some localized keywords in the Charleston area, suburbs, things like that. And I would get stuck on the third page, and I was like, why can I not break through this barrier? And I was looking at the numbers. It made sense. I shouldn't be stopped here. it was down to just little tweaks. And it was what guided me was I saw a lot of businesses doing the same I was doing on that third page. And so then I started looking, okay, let's try to mirror what's going on up front here. And it just, I mean, it changed my perspective on it too. And that was right out of the gates when I first started getting into SEO and building out the website for this business too.
Yeah. I always say like the smartest person in the room is willing to take a step back and be like, okay, where do I not know things so that I can learn? Because if you just sit there and say, well, no, I'm doing everything that I need to be doing, it's obviously you're not because you're sitting there
Yeah,
on the third
100%.
page, and I won't read a self-help book unless the person's sitting here like writing the chapter, be like, you know what, I was actually procrastinating this chapter and here I
Yep.
am. It's so important to be able to take what you've learned and grow with it and be humble enough to be like, all right, pivot.
Oh yeah, yeah. You definitely you have to fail and fail fast. And I tell my team that all the time too. It's like let's figure out what's not going to work so we can improve it and get better from it. But I mean, in our world, and I'm sure with yours, I mean everything adapts all the time, and I mean that's part of the game. Is you have to stay on top of everything and make sure that for us it's a lot of algorithm updates, and then you've got different keywords that you can see pick up steam, but staying on top of all those things and just making sure that you're up to date.
Absolutely. And your agency journey is already working with clients across multiple states. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So we started out. So I've been down in the Charleston area for 15 years now. So I consider this place home. I absolutely love it here. But originally from a little south of Cleveland. So started out when I was just getting into SEO and just marketing in general. I knew a few people back from home that had businesses, and they happened to be in home services too. So I reached out, and that's kind of how it all started. And then just throughout, I mean, friends and family, it's like it's the telltale story of how you start out at first, and it's kind of blended in between referrals and everything, and it's grown. So yeah, we've got folks out in Colorado, Texas, Florida, South Carolina obviously is the biggest one, and then Ohio.
Amazing. So where do you see Gracely growing next?
Yeah, good question. So definitely, we are expanding into healthcare a little bit more, and I know I alluded that to you in our first conversation. It's really home services. It's got a spot in my heart for doing that, so I don't see that changing. But I do see there's a lot of blends in healthcare and just getting leads, the service base and customer lifetime value through appointments and things. There's a lot of similarities there. So that's something that I've just focused on. So expanding in more of like the healthcare, dentistry, that's something we'll be focusing on. And then it's hot off the press. I'm not going to say too much about it yet, but I'm building several hyper-local websites for some of the clients that it'll give them exposure to some of the businesses that maybe wouldn't fit in our niche or wouldn't fit in the same style of work that we do, but still want that exposure locally. It's back to kind of that mission of building the community and building businesses behind it.
Absolutely. And as your client base grows, how do you think about scaling your capabilities? Do you lean more into building in-house, streamlining tech, or pulling in support when needed?
I personally like building in-house. I will say pulling in support would be the second option for me. So it depends. And really, we try to work as personalized and closely with the clients as possible. So that's extremely important for me right up front. So I don't like adding a lot of folks into the mix if they're not necessary or working directly with those clients. So the team itself, so we're a team of 5 right now based on our support. And where I've had to is like, if I partner with video content productions or, deeper website development with things that just we would not support on our end, like that's something where I'll pull in outside work, but it's typically like it's contracted on whatever basis of the project.
Makes sense. Totally. And, that's a lot of since we do a lot of white labeling, we
Yeah.
see a lot of people that potentially want to be in-house at some point, but they just don't have the capabilities or the scale or the time to invest in something like paid search or paid meta ads or programmatic geofencing, whatever it may be,
Sure. Yeah.
because they're having to hire each of those people, then they're having to train each of those people, and then the cost of hiring those people is one cost, and then you have to have the service. So what we'll do is we will help them scale up until they get to a point where they feel that they could take it on themselves, and then we almost graduate them and they've learned the process along the way, and we've scaled them into an agency that can afford something like that. So it's really interesting where you can go and like the routes you can take, and then you can learn from it and then pivot, and like we've said a million times in this podcast, pivot.
Yeah.
Kyle, this was such a great deep dive, and not just into what's working now in local SEO, but how smart operations and strategies can really build long-term growth. For those who want to learn more about Kyle's work, head over to gracelymarketing.com or follow Gracely on LinkedIn for SEO insights and real-world wins. Kyle, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.